Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Octo Tat Talks. I'll be speaking with Troy Lavinia, who is the founder and CEO of DailySOS, also the author of The Spiritual Operating System. And we'll be talking about spirituality. We'll be talking about a book that he's got in progress called The Prophet, the Mystic, and the Physicist, which is about kind of the intersection of spirituality and science. We'll talk a little bit about another one he has in the works, a detective novel called The Echo Below. And we'll wrap things up by covering off on how you can kind of push through when you feel like everything's kind of pushing you down. So, the value of community and ritual and visualization and kind of going with the flow. So, hope you enjoy. Let's go. Octo Tat Talks Episode 2 with Troy Lavinia. I am joined today by founder and CEO of DailySOS, Troy Lavinia. So DailySOS is a community really focused on helping people achieve mental and spiritual fitness, kind of ending that struggle and grind. And I met you through actually a LinkedIn message. You sent me a LinkedIn message in September 2024. And it took me a few months to join the community, but I'm so glad I did. When did you actually start DailySOS?
I started it in September of 2022. It was
Okay.
the first month that we ran the program.
Okay. And then how many members would you say have been through your program at this point?
Like 500
Awesome.
plus or minus, I would guess. Yeah.
You talk about on LinkedIn how this program is really focused on a vision, flow, surrender approach, and how that's actually kind of an ancient approach that's been forgotten. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I'll take a step back. So the origin of all of this is looking for a way to create consistency and stability in my life personally, and success in my business. My primary business that I still have is a business called Mosaic Research Management. And we do research for hedge funds and private equity firms. And I started that business in 2010. And for the first like 5 to 7 years, it was successful, but I really struggled to accomplish as much as I wanted to have as much of an impact as I wanted to, and to be able to accumulate wealth and freedom and success as I thought of it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And the business was good, but I was still struggling. And I had read, I want to say hundreds of books, but you know, tons of books on business and strategy and how to do business correctly, systems, operations, etc. And I felt like there was really nothing else I could be doing from a strategic or tactical standpoint in business to be successful with it. And so I started to read more about visualization and like rewiring your subconscious mind and your identity, and also starting to incorporate more spiritual principles that were in alignment with my yoga practice and my meditation practice, and trying to incorporate those into how I was doing business. And so I came up with a daily program for myself for managing my life and managing my business that incorporated what I thought were the most important spiritual principles and subconscious mind principles that I had read about in many different. And those are vision, flow, and surrender. And what I found is that when I created a daily plan for myself or a daily routine for myself that incorporated those principles into my life and into my business, it grew really well and really successfully. And I started a subsidiary to that business, and we grew from 0 employees to 150 employees in 18 months. And we were able to sell that business and create a really great success story for the employees and for myself with that one. And life has been, pretty enjoyable and pretty easy since I started putting these spiritual principles first. So vision, flow, and surrender were kind of the ones that stuck out. If you think about all of the spiritual traditions and a lot of the mystical traditions, these are things that most of them touch on that on the holidays. So vision is the idea that everything is grown in consciousness, or in the subconscious mind, and is created as an idea and held in mind, held in consciousness, nurtured with love and gratitude. And it exists there before it can exist in reality. And so, really important to listen to your heart, listen to your higher power, and claim what it is you want to be creating in life. Create a concrete vision for it. Start to visualize that and step into it and embody it in mind, and then allow that to unfold. That's the first principle of vision. The second is flow, and that's the idea of staying aligned with love rather than fear. So if we are operating from a place of joy and a place of love, from an open-hearted place throughout the day, and we're making decisions that feel good to us, if we've done that visualization and we've started to become the person that we want to become in consciousness and in mind and in our subconscious, then when we're acting from a place of love and we're thinking and deciding from a place of love, those actions and decisions are going to be naturally aligned with that new self that we're becoming. And the world will start to kind of ferment around that. And it will start to unfold that way. And then surrender is letting go of the old programs and the old self. And so if there are old subconscious programs or old aspects of your identity of who you are that are no longer in alignment with what you're becoming, then you can look at those, love those, be with them, hand them over, surrender them to God, to your higher power, and then eventually let those go with enough of that love and awareness. And what's left over is the new self. And what you hold in mind tends to manifest, tends to be projected out onto physical reality through you if you stay true to it for long enough. And so that's what I found to be true. And the idea is taking those principles and turning them into a daily routine that allows you to incorporate them in your morning routine and then throughout the day, so that you can stay consistent with them, so they are not just spiritual concepts or ideas, but they're also kind of a way of living. And you're giving them an opportunity to work for you in your life. And then what I found is that when I do these things, or when I've taught people to do these things, either in my business or in this course, that's kind of the upstream work that is allowing everything to be much easier downstream. Whereas if you're starting with business strategies and tactics, or relationship strategies and tactics, or fitness, or wealth building, or whatever it is, strategies and tactics in the physical, but you haven't first created that self in mind and in consciousness, fixed any of the things within you, or allowed to let go of any of the things within you that are contrary to that, and you've allowed that to unfold through you, then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle with any of the changes that you're trying to make externally. And it wasn't until I started doing these things that I was able to have success in any meaningful way for myself, and just lasting happiness.
It's interesting how you talk about routine and the importance of this, ritual and practice. And so I consider you my spiritual fitness coach. And really
Great.
I get a lot of value out of these daily huddles that you do, where it's 20 to 30 minutes every morning. We get together, you give us a guided meditation on Zoom, and a lot of that will be new new information, new guidance and things, but there's also a lot of repetition with some of the things that you help ground us in. And that's one of the things I really love about these sessions, is just like the answers are so simple, but sometimes we just need them pounded into our head every single day, and to share that energy
Yeah.
and just remind ourselves that it's all right there. And
it's interesting that there are so many fitness programs, but when it comes to spiritual fitness, I mean, you've talked about on a couple of other podcasts how really the only two places that you will find those things are typically in churches or in programs like Alcoholic Anonymous, where it's focused
Mm,
on spiritual growth and repetition and practice and community and things like that. And I'm just curious. I know you've talked previously about how, you know, when you were growing up, your mom kind of dragged you to church, and you didn't really connect with that version of God, of approach. So I'm curious, what was
yeah,
it that didn't work for you that made you kind of go and look for other opportunities to connect with a higher power?
for me, being brought to church growing up, it's like a really unilateral decision, and there's really very little understanding of why we're doing it, and the experience itself felt to me very esoteric and um, impractical. Like it's pretty boring. Like this is just my experience, at least as a kid. Church is pretty boring. They're talking about things that are really cryptic, um, and you don't see a whole lot of tangible benefit from it in life. Um, and so, as soon as you're big enough and forceful enough to get yourself out of that, like necessity to go to church, um, at least I took the out. And so, as soon as my mom said, "Hey, fine, whatever, don't go," I'm like, "Great, done. I'm out." Um, and I think a lot of people have the same experience. You know, we're given this idea of religion or this idea of God by our parents, and that's what ultimately they came to that worked for them or what they inherited that they chose to keep. And then they give that to us with best intentions. But if it doesn't resonate with us, we put it down. And so there's kind of like a spiritual dormancy, from age 12 through age 23 or 24 for me, where I didn't think much about it. And then came back to my spirituality. Really, I started doing yoga in 2000, and then that led to meditation, and that led to just this idea of there being a higher power and there being a connectedness, and the idea ultimately when I would struggle in life that I could call on forces that are larger than myself, God, to help. And so you hit rock bottom or hit some struggles and nothing works. There's no kind of practical solutions that are working, whether it's therapy or exercise or whatever. And so come come back to spirituality out of necessity. And what I found is that life started getting better with any type of like prayer or desperation, like calling on God, um, calling on, and then life would get better for a while, and I'd forget to do it and forget to kind of stay consistent with my prayer or my spirituality or meditation or whatever of connection with God was. And life would be pretty good for a while, and then I'd stumble and kind of hit rock bottom, fall on my face again, and then I'd find God once I fell on my face, and things would get better. And you go through a few of those cycles, at least for me, maybe after 4 or 5 of those over a decade, I realized like I gotta put this stuff first. And if I put my spirituality first every day, and I'm consciously taking time to connect with my version of God, whatever that means to me, essentially staying open to receiving and enjoying love and sharing love, then life continued to stay pretty good. And I stayed kind of emotionally and spiritually fit in the sense that I was open to love. I was receiving it, feeling it, enjoying it, sharing it on a consistent basis. That is kind of how I came to know God. there's this force and source of life and love and life energy that underlies and kind of powers everything that we see and that grows everything that we see. And so the version of God that I think I was given as a kid was, you know, some figure in heaven with a beard, a white beard and kind of rigid, and that didn't appeal to me, and so set that down for a while, and then part of the nice thing about growing up, if you choose to, is that I think we're given these ideas of these big structures or these big pillars of life, like God and religion and sex and marriage and work, and like our parents kind of inadvertently give to us versions of each of those things, and so we grow up with what those things look like, and our preconceived notions are like default programs of what those things look like. And then if we're lucky, we have an opportunity to sit down and reject those old versions if we'd like. And maybe there are some versions of those that our parents give us that we really like maybe they did marriage really well and we like that and we keep it. But maybe some versions of those things that they gave us we don't necessarily agree with, and we can let those go, and then we can kind of create this really nice new life for ourselves as an adult that's really custom to us and what we believe in, and as long as that works well with other people, it's like a real blessing to be able to do that. And so given a version of God, tried it, didn't really like it, put it down for a while, picked some version of God back up out of necessity and stuck with it and got to know it for myself. And what I try to do in Daily SOS is just give people an opportunity to connect, a reminder to connect with their version of God every day. Because what God looks like and feels like to you is different than me. And if we have 100 people here, it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. And the most important thing I feel is, or what I've experienced, is to make that connection every day. Remember that you're one with that source of light and love and life energy, that you can be open to receiving and enjoying love and sharing it, and that you have an opportunity to grow and experience and enjoy the life that you the life that you're envisioning for yourself. Hopefully that answered the question.
Absolutely. One of the things I appreciate about the way you present the higher power, it's like the God of your understanding, right? It's like, it's just, there is an energy, and it's however you choose to see that. It's just about acknowledging that it's not all you, like you're part of it and it comes through you, and we can amplify it. We're little conduits for this. Like you have a phrase that I absolutely love, that what's the filament in the light bulb? What do you say?
Oh yeah. We're kind of the other body, or we're like the filament between heaven and earth.
Yeah. So it's like we are the light, and we can amplify that light. And it's funny, there's lightning that just struck outside my window when I said that, which is hilarious to me.
Get out of here.
Yeah, but there's never lightning in Seattle area. It's always just
you're in the flow.
But I appreciate that, and that's, as I try to invite people into this community, I have a lot of atheist or agnostic friends, and I just try to explain to them, this isn't white bearded God talk. This is energy and connectivity talk. This is ritual talk. This is just trying to connect to something bigger than yourself, so that you can visualize the positivity. You can visualize what's next and how it absolutely 100% works. It's interesting to me just how simple it is, and when we look at that zeitgeist between everything that we've learned, how powerful that can be. I know you shared in a couple of huddles a little while back another book that you were working on, the Prophet, the Mystic, and the Physicist, which I'm
Mhm.
fascinated by. That's absolutely the conversation that I love to have. What can you tell me a little bit about that book and where you are in the scheme of things there?
Oh man, I have to keep. I think I'm gonna have to keep this part kind of brief, just because I haven't been working on it. So I started this about a year ago. It was just the idea that if we study the if we study the commonalities between all of these disparate traditions and teachings, we can start to understand or better understand some of the universal truths of how the universe works. Right. So like there's Newtonian physics is everything that we can see. It's like how objects interact with other objects in the physical space. But we really don't have a tangible understanding of what happens beneath that or what's happening that's causing that. And a lot of the spiritual traditions and mystical traditions have tried to understand that and decode it and then prescribe solutions to it. And quantum physics is trying to do the same thing in a more scientific way. And so the idea of the book is to look at the different major religious and spiritual traditions and look at the different mystical traditions, um, and look at quantum physics and see what are the main principles in each of those, um, like modalities, and what are the commonalities. So like what does quantum physics say about holding something in mind and having it manifest, and then how does Christianity and Taoism and Buddhism talk about the same types of things, and we can start to see different cultures are using different languages and ways of describing the same things. And so then how can we then take that and figure out like how maybe a better idea of how the universe or the forces that underlie our physical universe actually work. And I have a draft, but I haven't worked on it in about 9 months because I was started two books. I was writing that, and I was also writing a detective mystery novel.
Oh,
And I just got
cool.
really, yeah, I got really into the detective novel, and so I'm working on that right now. I've been working on that for the past 9 months, and I need to I need to make a little bit more progress and get that done, and then I'll come back to the prophet, the mystic, and the physicist. I'm excited about it starting to come back to me. Thanks
Yeah,
for asking.
absolutely. Yeah, because you,
Yeah,
so how many books do you have? Because you also wrote the spiritual operating system to supplement the program, which is fantastic, by the way, and
thanks.
and free for anyone who needs to take a look and see if they can dive in, right? Um,
Yeah,
so,
I wrote the book first. Like that was
oh,
my
okay.
idea. Like so, I sold my company, and then I was like, man, I really want to share how I did this because this was remarkably easy. And obviously, there's a lot of luck that takes place when you accomplish something, if you have some success. But I really believe it was when I first started implementing all of these principles very, very consistently that I was able to have a lot of success really quickly. And so I wanted to share that. And so I wrote a book about it, and it talked about these three primary spiritual principles that are pretty consistent across traditions. And it talked about the seven um, daily practices that I put in place that helped me leverage those, and even some practices that I put in place in my business that helped us as a team leverage those spiritual principles. So then I wrote the book, and I did that just in 20 minutes after I meditated every morning, 20 minutes every day for 3 months. And then I wrote that. And then I hired an editor to clean it up and then published it, self published it. Um, but then I realized that I don't know how to market a book. And so if I actually want to help people with this, there's not going to like, it's going to be challenging for me to figure out how to get people to read this book. And even if I got like 10,000 people to buy it, only 5% of them are actually going to finish the book. And for a book like this, it's all about how you implement the practices, not just reading it once and learning it. So, if I sell 10,000 copies of this book, maybe 1,000 people will actually read it. There might be 50 to 100 people who actually do anything with it and implement it consistently. So if I create a course or a program, I have a better chance of actually helping people implement these things. And so that's why I created the program. And then I decided just to give the book away as a PDF for people when they join the program. And I tried to make a business out of the program for a while because I think content businesses are super interesting. And we were creating a ton of content. We were teaching a lesson and doing a meditation every day. And so there's 100 different ways you can slice and dice and turn that into mini programs and different things. And a content business like that, you can charge a really small amount of money and create a tremendous amount of value for people. And that's a much better business than selling a book. So it all made sense. And for about 2 years, we were doing it as a business where people would purchase a subscription. They'd get the book, they'd get access to the daily huddle, they'd get access to the 21-day course and all the meditation library. But I just kind of got tired of trying to figure out how to market it successfully and never really cracked the code on that. And so now it's just it's a WhatsApp group, as you know, and
Yes.
people can join and dial into the meditations every day that we do on Zoom.
When I initially joined the program, I would attend the huddles, and like you said, the answers are right there. It's all in front of you. It's all easy to access, but it's difficult to get over that hump of actually doing the thing. There's a 21-day reboot. It's very simple. It's all laid out, and it took me probably 6 or 7 months before I actually was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. And I did, in conjunction with taking your advice of, hey, if you've got a creative project that you're passionate about, just put 20 minutes a day into it. That's 3 snooze button hits. Okay.
I know.
when you want to,
it's so hard though.
But why is that? Why?
I don't know.
This is so simple.
This is what I'm struggling. I don't know what it is. Well, let's think through it.
Okay.
I'm struggling with this right now because I'm doing most of the things, most of the habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't been doing, for the last month or so, I haven't been doing the 20 minutes a day on the things that I'm trying to create. And that's the idea. If you just put, and this really, really works, as crazy as it sounds. If there's something that you're creating, whether it's a project at work or it's your own business or it's, even a relationship that you want to improve, whatever it is, a book you want to write, etc. Anything that you're trying to create or grow, if you just clear the decks and sit down for 20 minutes and you visualize what you're creating in a joyful way, you're like, oh wow, right? So I'm writing this book. I sit down and I set a timer for 22 minutes. And the first 2 minutes, I just sit down and I think about the end point of that, which is oh my goodness, this is amazing. I created this detective story. It's this series. People love it. I love making it. These characters are so real. Keanu Reeves is playing this lead character in the Netflix series. It's wow, this is so amazing. I'm loving it. I'm loving bringing this series to life. And even just thinking that for 5 seconds, I start to get excited about it. I haven't worked on the book in a few weeks because I've been procrastinating and making excuses. But I do that, I get excited. I'm like, all right, let's go. And then I sit down and I work. I set a timer for 20 minutes. I work on it. And then once the 20 minutes is over, I stop. And it's so easy to go past. Once you do 20 minutes, most of the time you're going to be on a roll and you're going to want to keep going. And sometimes it makes sense, but in most cases, I'd say stop after 20 minutes because you're creating this momentum within yourself and around you and in the universe, I believe, right? Where you've stepped into your garden, essentially. There's this thing you're growing, this book in my case. I've shined a lot of love and attention on it. And it's human love and attention and awareness that grows those things, right? And I've just done that. I've actually done some work related to it. If I put it down, then God and the universe will continue to grow that thing. That thing's going to keep growing. Just like if I stepped into my garden over here and I, did a little bit of digging, a little bit of, you know, playing with the soil, making sure that it had enough water, making sure it had enough light. I don't need to sit there for 24 hours and like cut the thing in order for it to grow, right? Like nature and God and the natural blueprint takes care of that and the thing grows. And I just need to step in for a little bit of time every day and to it. I think it's the same thing with anything creative. And then when you come back to it the next day, you do another 20 minutes and you have even more momentum. And then you're doing 20 minutes, God's doing it, 23 hours and 30 minutes of work. And eventually it requires more than 20 minutes. But if you've gone for a few days or if you're stuck on something, 20 minutes is like a really magic amount of time I found. Like I wrote my first book in 20 minutes a day. I started my business, the last one, just 20 minutes a day. And then ultimately you end up doing more than 1 20-minute work block. But it's really magic. And like in my case, the last month, I've had a lot going on, but like I've had a lot going on. It's just like if you ever catch yourself saying that, it's just like, how bad do you really want this thing? Because it's like, how
Yep.
many people have you heard say that? Like, I never want to say that. But yeah, like I had a lot going on, but there's no excuse. Like I need to sit down for 20 minutes a day and put it into this book. Like I want to finish the book. And for me, I kind of know what it is. I've written a 380-page detective story. I really like it, but I'm on the 4th draft of revisions. It's like basically done, but I haven't shared it with anybody, and I don't know how to market it. And so, like for me, it's that fear that this thing that I've created that I love, I'll show it to people, and they won't get it or they won't like it, or I'll try to market it and that won't work, right? So it's kind of this fear of failure, maybe, that I see that on the horizon as like a very near term next step for something I need to do on this book. And so I've just subconsciously like pulled back and started to find other things to like spend my time on every day. And my day is very full and I'm doing a lot of things, but I haven't worked on the book. And so, yeah, I think having an accountability group in cases like this is really helpful. And when I was writing my first book, I had my mentor, Gay Hendricks, who would just text in every morning and say, like, I did my 20 minutes, or like I did. And like, that's really, really helpful. Because I tell you, if you just sit down and whether it's 20 minutes or it's an hour, whatever amount of time it is that you can do every day consistently, you will make remarkable progress very quickly. And that thing is either going to grow and reach its point of success, or it's going to grow and turn out to be something you're actually not interested in, but like legitimately, the window has passed and you're not interested anymore and you got what you needed out of it, but you didn't ignore it or procrastinate or quit too soon. And so you're going to see that thing through to its resolution. And it's so important because I feel like if God or your higher power or the universe or your creative self is putting something into your heart and into your mind and saying, hey, this is time to create this. Like for you, it's your podcast. Let's say you've been wanting to create it. For me, it's this book that I'm working on. Let's say it's another business idea I have that I'm working on with somebody and I have to work on it today. Right? It's been put into your heart and to your mind for a reason. And it might end up being that great thing that you expect it to be. And it might end up being something totally different, just like that plant in your garden end up being, one thing. It might end up being another. But I think it's our obligation as humans who are given that vision that we tend to it, at least with a little bit of space time every day in order to see it through to its completion. And when we do that, we're opening up this channel. Like when we connect with God and we open up our heart, we're opening up that channel of love. And that channel is the same channel that creativity flows through, I think, right? And so when we do this 20 minutes of creative work on whatever our heart's telling us to work on, we're keeping that channel open for creativity. And that channel is also the same thing abundance flows through. So I find when I'm staying wide open for love, I'm staying wide open for that creativity, and I'm doing a little bit of the work, I'm keeping that channel open. I'm staying wide open for abundance in terms of being generous and, feeling abundant. Everything flows really, really beautifully and really nicely and really happy naturally. And if I start to stifle any of those things, then the channel closes and we start to feel congested and closed down and depressed. Right? And so, yeah, when I'm taking time every day to connect with God, feel love, give love, live open heartedly, when I'm taking time every day to actually do a little bit of work on the thing that God has been telling me I need to grow, and I'm staying and generous. Life unfolds and flows through us and around us really nicely. So I gotta get my butt back to work on this book. I'm like starting to feel a little congested the last few days, and that's a part of it.
Yeah. Well, maybe
Thanks.
we need to be each other's accountability buddies, because I'm also inspired by your 20 minutes a day. I started working on like a sci-fi love story, and I got for like
Oh,
this.
cool.
I've typically written short stories and like short form stuff, and I wanted to push myself to write a full book, and it was doing the 20 minutes a
Yeah.
day plus. My aunt was wanting to write some stuff too, and so we for like 6 months, like you recommend, every time one of us would complete our 20 minutes, we just text the other one and be like, I did it, and that's it. Like just and then the other person would be like, oh my gosh, I haven't done it yet, and would go do it. So it's just like having that push, not even with the expectations that anything would be shared with the other person. It was just the act of doing it. And I think that in the same way that it's much easier, I guess, well, for me anyway, for many people to work out when you have a group, when you're going to a yoga class versus doing yoga at home on YouTube where nobody's watching you and nobody knows you're doing it, like I think there's something to that. And I think that when
100%.
I stopped having that accountability with her, then those excuses come out. And I feel like also when we're onto something, when we're tapped in with the universe and it is using us as a conduit to put something out there, I feel like there's other energies that are just like, we don't like that. Like, you should not be that close to that. So we're going to give you the imposter syndrome. We're going to give you excuses. You're going to get a little sick and not feel like it. And because when you're given that gift, you have to prove that, no, I really want it. Like I believe in myself and this thing enough that even though I'm super busy and this business meeting went like 2 hours long, now I'm super irritated about whatever happened in there. Like, are you still going to do it now? Because it is like we're capturing the lightning that's outside. We're capturing the lightning, we're trying to direct it and show that we can handle it. And then, but there's going to be challenges along the way. And that's where things always break down. And then it's like, oh, well, now it's been 2 weeks. Like, do I even care? Like, now I'm on to something else. But it's just like, it's so, I think it is that accountability check-in. So maybe we'll have to check in with each other and be like, did you work on your mystery novel? Did you work on your sci-fi book?
Love that. I think we should definitely do that. Yeah, that's what happens. Like when we start making progress, there's still this old self that's part of us, right? The smaller self that wants us to stay small in order to stay safe. I think is ultimately the program. And so it starts to kind of create that natural resistance when we start to take actions towards growth and creation. And it means well, it's trying to keep us safe. Because historically, if we stood out and we grew, then we died. And so
Yes.
like our biology wants to keep us in the past. The problem with that is that when you're being given something that you're asked to grow and your heart wants to do it and you're not doing it, it really starts to deaden you. Right? And so we have to continue to just take that action and also then give attention and love to that part of ourselves that's afraid, that doesn't want to do it. And not necessarily ignoring that or just shoving that down and working, but also noticing it and appreciating it for how well it's kept us safe. Yeah, but that's, I feel like, what usually happens once we start making progress or taking action on something.
So, SOS in your program stands for Spiritual Operating System. And you talk a lot about rewiring and reprogramming and, like treating us like we're machines that can get new operating systems and new software to run, and we're in charge of that, right? And so that old program that we're running, life version 1.0, where we try something new and we die, like we need to upgrade. Like we need to upgrade to the new to life 3.0, where you try something new and you fly, like you succeed,
Yeah,
it's different, right? But it's hard when you're running that old system to like take out that old floppy disk and be like, I don't need you anymore. Now we're in the cloud or whatever,
it's hard. It's so hard. So it's helpful to have community,
Yes, very.
I have a group here right now at my house. And when we get off this call, we're gonna work for 2 hours. And then we're gonna take a half hour or so and share what we not necessarily like share exactly what we worked on, but just talk to each other about what we worked on. That's gonna be good because I can't hide that 2 hour, like I'm not gonna procrastinate on that 2 hours of work if I know that I have to talk to people about it for afterwards. And that would be kind of nice to have that type of work environment where we could do that. We could share what we're working on or at least have accountability for what we're working on in like a creative, healthy way. And these are people who are working on totally different things. There's a few of my friends who are artists and other entrepreneurs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because I really need a kick in the ass right now, to be honest.
I hear you. It's so easy to make excuses. It's so hard to do the thing. But
totally. And sometimes it's like I start to, like I feel like a little bit like I'm in my head or I'm like processing some trauma or whatever it is. But like at a certain point, it's like you gotta look at like the big check boxes. It's like gotta sleep well. I gotta move and work out every day. I gotta eat right. And I gotta do some creative work. And if I'm not doing those things and I don't feel well, it's not because there's some old trauma necessarily or whatever. It's just because I'm not doing the stuff that makes humans feel good. And like one of those is actually like doing creative work of some sort. So that's what's been doing now.
That's awesome. So, okay, so next up you have your detective book that we're going to see Keanu Reeves starring in a Netflix series about. It's going to be awesome. What else do you have brewing on the horizon? What's your next gig?
I
Is
got
that
it. All right.
everything? I know you're always working on like 17 things at once.
Right now I'm working on Mosaic, which is my primary business. And like the guys who are running that are doing a really nice job. And it's kind of a nice turnaround for us this year. And I'm giving a little bit of attention to that. And then also working on Daily SOS. Like right now it's kind of in like from a growth standpoint, it's in a holding period, but we're just hosting those meditations. So I really want to come back to that because I think there's a lot of ways to take these concepts and turn them into programs and other things that are helpful for people. And it's just a matter of me putting it down and like having renewed interest in it. And I'm starting to get more excited about that again. So I'll probably start working on that in the next few months again. And then this book, it's called The Echo Below, the detective story. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna finish that. And then The Prophet, the Mystic, and the Physicist, that book about spirituality and the underlying nature of reality. And then I started working with a friend of mine on a new business that is really an AI platform to consolidate all of the different type of therapy and healing modalities that you're working on. Right. So if you're seeing a talk therapist and you're seeing a psychiatrist and you're going to breath work and you're doing psilocybin journeys and you're doing all these different things and you're doing them over time, can we create a platform where you can pull in all of those sessions and transcripts to create kind of a consistent thread where you can set some goals for the healing that you're doing and actually see how everything is unfolding, and there can be consistency around it so that it's not, because right now everything is really disjointed. Like if I'm doing talk therapy and I'm doing somatic therapy and I'm doing breath work or body work or any of these things, all of that, there's really no records of any of it being kept in most cases. If anything, it might be a few notes on my therapist's notepad somewhere, but I don't have much control over it. And there's now ways for us to do that in a much more intelligent fashion so that we can kind of make more tangible progress in our healing. More.
So
Yeah, we'll see.
if people wanted to jump on board with DailySOS, what's the best way for them to hook in? Just go into your site.
Yeah, go to dailysos.com, check it out, and you can sign up there, join the WhatsApp group, and then join the daily huddles. And then if they go on there, they can also get access to all the content in school, and that's all free now, and they can just play around with it.
Awesome. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation with you and diving a little bit deeper into how this all started and what you're looking at doing next. And looking forward to our next huddle. Always a pleasure.
Yeah,
But
same. And let's start that text thread together. We'll get the accountability going.
perfect. I love it.
Thank you so
Before
much
we
for
drop
having me.
off. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we drop off, I'll just say, like, so you've done a lot of these podcasts. What's a question that you wish I had asked? Is there anything you want to talk about that you didn't get to?
Oh. Well, I think one thing is always fun to hear is like what somebody's most excited about in life right now. And also maybe like what's the thing giving you the most challenge in life right now? If you can kind of, if somebody's willing to answer those questions honestly, that can be kind of interesting to hear. And so I think it's always interesting to hear people's challenges, especially successful people. They don't talk about them very often, but you start to hear the challenges that people are having. You recognize that there's only 4 or 5 big ones, like only a handful of big ones that we all have, and everyone has them. And that's kind of nice to hear, I think.
What would you say is your biggest challenge right now, besides putting your mystery novel to the side when you shouldn't be?
Oh boy. Do you have another hour? But
I do.
I'll just give you. Yeah. Well, I think the high level is like right now. I've kind of recently discovered this like main old program within me that kind of is like the root of like a lot of the issues that I have in life. And my life situation right now, like, I'm getting divorced and I'm starting to date. And I'm also trying to do that, and like I'm making a lot of new friends, and I'm doing things that are like, 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 I'm doing things that are like putting myself out there and like opening myself up to people more than I have in a long time. And so there's like a lot of sensitivity to that. And so I feel like I'm in this life situation where this old program has been brought to life for me. And it's basically just really old, like probably from childhood or maybe from past lives, and, inherited into childhood or wherever, depending on what you believe. But it's this idea that like if someone gets to know me, like at my core, I'm unlovable for whatever reason. Like I like who I am on the surface, but if you get to know me, I'm either like boring or not a good guy. I'm unlovable, and therefore I'm going to be rejected and exiled and like excluded. Therefore, I'm going to live and die alone. And so, like, this is this program within me, and letting people see me or exposing myself to people triggers that program. And I think historically I've repressed that or haven't been aware of it necessarily. And I've been able to live a pretty successful, happy life. But now that's coming to the surface. It's like I've continued digging, and now there's this big fossil there. And it's like, whoa, what is this thing? And so now it's a process of like living my life, trying to enjoy my life while also giving love and awareness to this when it comes up rather than just pretending it's not there or repressing it. And it can be pretty painful because if I'm like exposing myself and showing who I am to more people, like a new girlfriend or a new partner or new friends, I want to be doing that. It's allowed, like doing that is creating this level of love and depth and connection in these friendships and partnerships that I've never had before, which is great. But once I go to that depth, there's this old program there that's really painful, that makes me feel unlovable and makes me afraid of being rejected and being excluded. Um, and so, like, my choice is stay at the surface and limit the degree to which I can connect with people and have like I can have superficial relationships and friendships, and once they hit a certain level, I can revert to my old safety patterns, which is like push people away so that this relationship doesn't get any closer or don't show up because I'm uncomfortable socially or whatever it is. Or I can choose to like continue going deeper, continuing to open to love, open to connection. But at that level of depth, there's this old program, which is like, I'm unlovable and they're going to reject me, which feels really terrible. So it's like figuring out how to give that the attention and love that it needs so that it can start to melt and transform, and that I can then go to that level of depth of love and connection with people without that necessarily overriding fear and sadness. So that's kind of a deep answer, but that's what I've been working on. Like, and that's become really apparent to me the past like 2 months or so. And so it's like a big part of all of these new friendships and relationships I'm forming. Um, that's a lot of work and it's a big challenge, but it's, I think, a good challenge. Uh, and like, I'm really loving the friendships and the relationships and really trying to love that part of me as much as I can.
That's really beautiful. I appreciate that that honesty and you sharing that with me. And it is interesting to me how we or I have had a tendency to avoid working on those deeper issues with the comfort of a familiar relationship, where you think everything's great, you think everything's awesome because there are rituals there and there is repetition, so there's expectation and there's the known, even if the known isn't the best to know. And then,
Yeah, that's right.
then when you separate out and you see everything clearly and you start analyzing, well, why did this happen? Or, what is this pattern that keeps occurring? And you get to that core and you're like, oh no, I want to hide from this again. I don't want to
Yeah,
deal with it.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah. But I
yeah.
think
And
that,
so like,
that's a great, beautiful place when you're in that vulnerable spot and you can see clearly and you have that choice of, well, I can run away from this, or I can figure out like, why is that you feel unlovable? Like, what is that core? Where does that
yeah,
come from? Why, what are those I am statements that you're feeding yourself that's perpetuating that story? And how can you visualize something new?
mm,
That's tricky,
yeah,
but possible, because you can do it. Um,
yeah.
you've proven
We
in
can
so many
totally
other
do it.
aspects.
Yeah, and it's there in front of you, So now it's like we kind of have that responsibility to keep looking at it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean we'll see. I think like the way this resolves itself is just by keeping it in the light, continuing to give it love and awareness, and that tends to heal things um, with enough time, and just being aware of it when it comes up, or when we're starting to experience that discomfort, so that we don't jump into it and start acting from it and reliving those old patterns that just kind of reinforce it and dig it in. So that's the biggest challenge for me right now in life. I think it's really fundamental. So I think if we find one of those, whatever that thing is that you're working on that feels challenging, it like for me it feels challenging directly in relation to my partnerships and relationships, right? But it's much more fundamental and universal than that too, because it's probably, if I start to heal this, it also relates to my fear of continuing to work on the book, right? Because it's putting the book out there is a way of letting people see me and maybe seeing like being vulnerable to being unlovable in that context, and like maybe a lot of that fear and trepidation around finishing the book and putting it out there starts to disappear naturally as I heal this. And so that's kind of the cool work of the healing practice, and part of what we're doing with Daily SOS with that 21-day program is that like you set a goal for yourself, and in trying to accomplish that goal, it brings to the surface this next old thing that needs to be healed. Right. So like maybe my goal is to like have a girlfriend that I like and have a good relationship. Well, that starts to bring this to the surface. And then I'm able to surrender this and heal this over time. And that not only helps my ability to accomplish that goal of having a good relationship, but it also then has this, it changes who I am. And so I'm no longer afraid of working on the book, and I'm no longer afraid of doing other things. Right.
Good. Well, I mean, it goes back to your focusing on those 5 key areas, right? Where you're not giving yourself too much to deal with in your garden that you're nurturing and
Yeah.
growing. And keeping that balance, because when we are going through something traumatic, it's really easy to focus all of our energy on that one thing, and then you neglect the other things that are important to you, and then you just feel worse than you did when you were dealing with the crappy thing. And
Totally.
that's tricky too.
Totally.
But yeah, I think in everything that you're sharing, it's coming back to the ritual, the balance, and the positive reinforcements, as difficult as those may be. And I think it's awesome that you've got your buddies out there to help foster that environment where you are accountable for doing those things. You're not cocooning in a negative way. You're cocooning with some other people to
Yeah,
emerge.
community is really healing for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm certainly happy to be part of your community, and I hope that this little conversation will encourage some other people to join, and we'll see some new faces in the huddle, because I think the more the merrier in that. The more people who are sharing that positive energy and proving that by connecting with community and kind of sharing that a similar vision, that the world can be a little bit easier to live in and a little bit more fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is a really fun and helpful conversation for me too. So I appreciate it. Hopefully other people will find it helpful.
Awesome. All right, Troy. Well, I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, Kate.
Okay.
Great to see you.
You too.